Presumed Innocent. Jazzman Denzel Washington is torn between music and love in Spike Lee's Mo Better Blues. And Emily Lloyd takes Kiefer Sutherland on a crime spree in Chicago Joe and the Showgirl. It's all coming up next on Siskel and Ebert.
Should not be handled this way. You should speak with Rusty alone.
What's this about?
It's about the fact that you were in Carolyn's apartment the night she was killed.
Harrison Ford plays a prosecutor with the tables turned as he is prosecuted for murder in Presumed Innocent. That's one of the big summer movies we'll be reviewing this week on Siskel and Ebert. We'll also have a review of Spike Lee's new film. I'm Gene Siskel of the Chicago Tribune.
And I'm Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times. Our first movie is named Presumed Innocent, and this, of course, is the long-awaited movie version of the best-selling novel by Scott Turow, a whodunit that was so complicated, so explicit in its sexual details, and so surprising in its outcome that just about everybody in the movie business seemed to agree it would make a sensational film if it could be filmed at all. Well, it has been filmed, and the bottom line is the movie will not disappoint fans of the book. The movie stars Harrison Ford as a high-ranking prosecuting attorney and Bonnie Bedelia as his wife. Ford has been assigned to investigate the bloody rape and murder of one of his colleagues, and what Bedelia knows is that Ford had been having an affair with the victim.
It's your way of reliving the whole thing. She's dead, and you're still obsessing.
The murder woman is played in flashbacks throughout the movie by Greta Scacchi. She was a private, mysterious person who used sex in order to get what she wanted from the men in the office. Among the other men who had affairs with her was the chief prosecuting attorney himself, played by Brian Dennehy.
Well, why don't I say that the decedent and I were both single and both adults.
The story takes a sensational turn when Harrison Ford himself is accused of the murder.
We've got the fingerprint results. The ones you could never remember to ask for. And they're your prints all over the bar glass.
Raul Julia is Ford's defense attorney, and his job is to overcome an avalanche of damaging circumstantial evidence.
The jury wants to hear me say I didn't do it.
And that you will do very well. But with every word, you will confirm what the prosecution is saying, that you were overwhelmed with a sexual obsession that took a wrong turn into rage when she ended the affair.
As they were pre-screening this movie, Warner Brothers asked journalists not to reveal the ending of Presumed Innocent, even though the book sold millions of copies, and presumably a lot of the people in the audience will think they know who did it. The way the film has been constructed, however, by director Alan J. Pakula and his co-writer Frank Pearson, a reasonable doubt does begin to grow even in the minds of people like myself who have read the book. So there is suspense. There is also the creepy but fascinating attraction of the whole crime genre. The way the movie looks into the hearts of angry and cowardly people and sees what they are really capable of. Pakula is a director who seems to specialize in bringing difficult books to the screen. He directed All the President's Men and Sophie's Choice, and with Presumed Innocent, he has done justice to a novel that could very easily have been made into a very bad film, and this is a good one.
I think he did a real good job, too. I agree that it was a writing challenge because I read the book, too. I was able to figure out from the book real quickly who it was, but this movie did create that same sense of suspense, and I was admiring that. And I think that what is done is, I think it's really the director's work, along with the cinematographer, Gordon Willis, who specializes in nighttime pictures like The Godfather. And there is such a claustrophobic, uptight world here. You have the courtroom, of course, which is tight, but then you have Harrison Ford's performance, which is looking down all the time and tight on him. And every shot, it's just like it's a really oppressive world, and so we're just caught up in there. It's like a box within boxes.
The typical shot in this movie is an interior at night in a dark oak room with just a couple of lights around and people in shirt sleeves and suspenders.
Even the sex sequence is in a tight place. I mean, you know, and that creates the movie.
And so the whole movie is about this sort of claustrophobic pressure that's bearing down on everyone, and the performances are good. I would like to zero in on Harrison Ford, because it seems to me that in a movie like this, where he either did do it or didn't do it,
right,
any performance runs the risk of tilting our feelings one way or the other. A different kind of actor would seem to be too innocent or too guilty. Harrison Ford is so taciturn, so quiet, so withdrawn in this performance that he is perfectly right. At any given moment, you can say, well, he's acting like a killer, or you can say he's acting like a man who has been, you know, who knows he's innocent.
I think the way he played it is that he's an accomplished lawyer who is in this situation.
Yeah.
And so it's lifelike. The other thing is there's a terrific supporting cast all the way through. The little players, the coroner, some of the political hacks, Raul Julia, very, very well cast all the way through. Our next film, and it's an odd picture, is called Chicago Joe and the Showgirl, a fanciful telling of the true story of an American soldier hanged for murder following a crime spree in World War II England. Kiefer Sutherland plays the serviceman, a wimp who is energized into violent action when he meets an English showgirl played by Emily Lloyd, who wants her life to be as exciting as the gangster movie she loves.
I'd like to do something really dangerous.
On their joyride through life, the couple picks up a hitchhiker with the intent of robbing her. Then things get out of control.
You didn't know we should drown out any of the screams.
Director Bernard Rose tells his story as part fantasy, with the showgirl imagining herself at times to be a movie star. Chicago Joe and the Showgirl is an ambitious but very awkward film, helped not in the least, I think, by an array of bored and boring and arch characters. Their lives held no universal import or appeal for me. It's as if they weren't worth a film, at least as one as elaborate as this.
Well, I didn't think the film was successful either, but I don't see how you could possibly describe these characters as bored or boring. I mean, Emily Lloyd plays a young woman who lives totally in a Star Trek world of movies. She meets this American soldier and projects upon him the idea that he's a Chicago gangster and talks him into sticking up places and eventually even murdering somebody. He's her accomplice. They live in a fantasy world of racing around at night in a stolen truck, committing crimes, making love, leading a double life. How can you call that boring and bored?
Well, what I'm saying is that, and I say as in a film as elaborate as this, what you've described is the elaborate things that they do.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that at their core, these are quite dull people. I don't see, I think an obvious comparison would be, let's say, Bonnie and Clyde, who act out some kind of fantasy world, which is quite exciting. But Bonnie and Clyde individually seemed interesting to me, seemed compelling characters. These two are dullards by comparison.
Well, this is not Bonnie and Clyde, and it's trying to do the same thing. I think it's trying to show these people caught up in a romantic image of themselves that leads them to do things that neither one could have done separately. What didn't work for me, essentially, is the fact that the movie is so artificial. It was, I think this was deliberate, but nevertheless it didn't work. It was shot all on sets. It was shot inside sound stages. Everything was a little bit larger, a little bit more angled than life itself, and so you feel as if the message of what's happening to them has overwhelmed the spontaneity that they might have had, but I still don't think that the characters themselves could be described that way.
Okay, when we come back, Spike Lee's new movie starring Denzel Washington, set in the world of jazz. It's called Mo Better Blues.
You ever heard of the Mo Better?
Mo what?
Mo Better makes it Mo Better.
Our next movie is named Mo Better Blues, and this is the first Spike Lee film since Do the Right Thing, which we both thought was one of the best films of the last 10 years. So any film that Spike Lee made next was probably going to suffer by comparison. It's the second novel syndrome, even though this is actually his fourth film. But Lee has made a wise decision and made a completely different kind of film this time, a downbeat love story with a lot of music in it, starring Denzel Washington as a jazz man who betrays both of the women in his life, but is stubbornly loyal to the one guy he shouldn't trust, his manager, played by Spike Lee.
So how much you owe?
Afraid to say. More than before.
All right, look. I'm gonna see how much I can raise, but you gotta get help.
This is screen newcomer Cinda Williams making a sensational debut as a songstress and seductress.
We don't make love because you don't love me. Oh. But in the meantime, I'll settle for some of that Mo Better.
Yeah. I knew you would.
Director Lee's sister, Joie Lee, plays the other woman, a woman who would be good for Washington if only he could see that.
So how you doing, baby? We should have been down the club. We was kicking butt. I mean, you should have been there.
Good, I'm glad it went well.
Mo Better Blues begins with the hero as a young boy being forced to take music lessons, and it ends with the hero's son in the same house also taking music lessons. I thought those scenes belonged in another movie, especially since the movie hurries past the details about how Washington's character gets from a low point in his life into the world of that happy ending. There seems to be an act missing somehow. I was also disappointed, I guess, that this was not another great masterpiece like Do the Right Thing. It's more of a love story and more of a film about music instead of a fearless look at the way we live now. But you can't criticize a film for what it isn't. You especially can't criticize it for not being as good as Do the Right Thing. How many movies are? What this movie is a good-looking and well-acted film with a lot of great music and strong performances by Denzel Washington, the newcomer Cinda Williams, and Spike and Joie Lee. What it is not is a film with a clear sense of mission and a compelling storyline to take us from the beginning to the end. It's often a feast for the eyes and the ears, but it's not an example of Spike Lee's best work.
I had to see it a second time because I think I was, in the throes of the Do the Right Thing issue where I'm hanging on every frame, and this picture doesn't have that kind of compelling quality, and that comes from the script. I think there's a lot of things going on here, maybe too many things. Maybe this needed another time through the typewriter. But the second time that I watched it, I guess I saw what was there of positive value, and there's a lot. The Denzel Washington character is an interesting character. He is playing a guy who is not particularly likable. You would think someone as glamorous as Denzel Washington, he's going to be really a really good guy. Well, he's pretty much a self-involved workaholic and very rough on the women in his life. And I admired that this time through. Also, you say a feast for the eyes, and it surely is that. This guy doesn't know how to make uninteresting shots. There was one problem that I had, which was that he has a music track all the way through this picture. He didn't do the right thing. There I thought it worked. Here I wanted some quiet for the intimate scenes between the characters, and that would be my one big complaint.
Well, one other problem that I had was some of the scenes are clearly improvised, and they aren't improvised very well. There are scenes where the actors are talking to each other, and it's like that feeling you get when you see improvisation on the stage, and each actor essentially is saying to the other actor, well, what do you want me to say? Although that's not the words they're using. But are you saying this, or are you saying that?
This is among the band members. There's a number of sequences like that.
Yeah, I think that the movie needed to be written from beginning to end. It shouldn't be left up in the air like that. Nevertheless, I'm disappointed in it because I think Spike Lee's work has been so high, but I would recommend it simply on the basis of the fact that it is worth going to see. There's a lot of good stuff.
I'll tell you, one payoff sequence for me was the Cinda Williams singing. I thought she was sort of a boring character, the pretty girl, the too pretty girl, but empty-headed until she sings. That, and in fact, if I were remaking this movie, I'd have her sing earlier on so that we have something to really care for about her. She's very talented when she sings.
So you're recommending the film?
Yes.
You are?
Yes, with reservations, yeah.
Coming up next, we'll examine the phenomenon of Cinema Paradiso, the Sicilian Oscar-winning movie that is now going on to win repeat business from adults nationwide.
Over the last couple months, frequently when I've had an adult come up to me and say something like, I just saw the greatest film, I respond, I know, Cinema Paradiso. And people say, how did you know? Well, it's because I've been hearing constant praise for this movie, which won the Oscar for Best Foreign Film this year, with people telling me they've seen it twice or 3 times. They've taken their aged parents to see this picture. And in this summer of violent action pictures, what's going on with this more gentle subtitled movie? It opened in February in New York, Chicago, Washington, Los Angeles, Boston, San Francisco, and it's still going strong 6 months later. Cinema Paradiso is an autobiographical story about a young man in Sicily who grows up in and around the village movie theater with the film projectionist serving as his surrogate father while his own dad is at war. The film follows the boy into adolescence and his love affair with a neighborhood girl. One of the reasons I think Cinema Paradiso is so popular is because of its adolescent love story. There's a great tradition, of course, for that sort of thing, from Romeo and Juliet to Summer of '42. This could have been, in the start, Summer of '42 Italian style. Every adult remembers the exquisite torture of young love, and I think many adults also carry with them a nostalgia for the grandeur of the movie-going experience of their own youth, which has been trashed in America, of course, with the advent of the shopping mall multiplex cinema. The appeal then is of sweeter times, maybe better times, even with a world at war.
You know, I've had the same experience with people saying, I just saw Cinema Paradiso, and it's like the gods must be crazy. A movie opens, it gets good reviews, it's a subtitled film, it's playing in the art theater somewhere in town, and you think, okay, that's that. And then 6 months later, the movie is still playing. And people are going, and it's a word-of-mouth picture. There aren't any more reviews appearing about it. Those all appeared last February. People are telling each other, and every Friday night the theater is filled with people coming out with a goofy grin on their face saying, you know, I just saw this subtitled Italian film, and I don't know what I was doing in this theater, but you know what? It was a pretty good movie.
Well, people saying they're crying in the last sequence in the picture. I mean, very strong praise.
What it gives people, I think, is not only the adolescent love story that you mentioned, not only this feeling of another time and place that was gentler and sweeter, but also, of course, all of those clips from other movies. The running gag in the film is the local priest who censors all the love scenes by taking out the kisses. So that you have all of these movies where Humphrey Bogart and Ingrid Bergman walk toward each other, and then there's a cut to outside on the balcony. And in the corner of the theater, piling up in the projection booth are all of these kisses. And then you get that amazing montage of kisses at the end of the movie. It's like a great kind of hosanna to the movie love scene.
This picture is coming out in home video in mid-November is the target date right now. This would be one to see, you got a couple months, it would be one to see in theaters because it's celebrating a theater and see it on the biggest screen, I think.
And the audience, one thing that I've noticed with the whole audience is there are little gasps of recognition from each, because you can identify all of these different movies that are seen in the little movie theater in Cinema Paradiso. When we come back, Harrison Ford, the star of Presumed Innocent, has made a lot of good movies, and we're going to look at them on a special home video segment.
This is a loaded gun. This is very, very dangerous.
Harrison Ford is on a lot of magazine covers right now because of his starring role in Presumed Innocent, and we thought we'd devote a home video segment to some earlier stages in his career, because no actor in history has been in films that made more money than the complete works of Harrison Ford. His credits include the Star Wars and the Indiana Jones movies, 6 pretty good grossers to put on your resume. And yet there's something so down-to-earth and matter-of-fact about Ford that somehow he doesn't have as high a profile as many actors whose movies have made a lot less money. On this home video segment, we want to look at a couple of movies from Harrison Ford's career that may have slipped your mind, even though they got a lot of attention at the time. My choice of the best of Ford's non-blockbuster works is Witness, a 1985 film that had Ford as a big city policeman who gets involved in a murder case and then becomes a target himself.
Oh my God, why didn't you get to a hospital?
No, doctor. Gunshot wound. They have to make a report. And if they make a report, they'll find me. And if they find me, they find the boy.
Witness was billed as a murder thriller, but it could also have been billed as a love story, and director Peter Weir also made it into a fascinating look at life in a modern-day Amish settlement. It's a wonderful movie.
I think what Ford's contribution is, and it's not the kind of thing that gets a lot of notice or praise, is you follow, he's enough of an everyman that you follow the story through him. He looks, you want to look where he's looking. I mean, it's that elemental kind of yeoman work that's the backbone of a lot of commercial filmmaking, and he seems like he's a perfect guy for it. I'm going to pick a picture that it grossed far, far less. One little scene Harrison Ford performance that I'm particularly fond of was in the movie The Mosquito Coast from 1986, based on the Paul Theroux novel about an American inventor turned off by the crassness of today's society. Fed up, he takes his family to the jungle of Central America to set up an alternative, more natural lifestyle.
When America's devastated, laid to waste by nuclear holocaust, these are the skills that are going to save them.
At first, he's simply righteous. Later, he's revealed as mad.
I'm a changed man, Mother. No more chemicals or poisons. If what you want isn't washed up on the beach, you probably don't need it.
This is anything but a glamorous role for Harrison Ford. He dares to play an unlikable character, rare for a big star. He also is completely credible as an intellectual. Again, something that a lot of action heroes would have difficulty playing. I think that's because Harrison Ford just happened to hit it big in adventure movies, but at the core, he's simply a fine minimalist actor.
He is a fine actor. He's such a fine actor that he's able to bring credibility even to the Indiana Jones movies, which can certainly use it and which benefit from it.
Right.
I didn't like Mosquito Coast, and I'll tell you why. I think he gave a great performance in the movie, so great that he was completely effective as one of the most unlikable, boring, arrogant, offensive people I've ever seen on film, and eventually, after the period of 2 hours, it was just too much for me to watch what he was putting his family through, the way he drags this wife and these kids up the river into this place at the end of the world and forces them to go along with his madness is effective, and yet at the same time, it's certainly not entertaining.
Well, you're using entertaining in the most base sense. I think that he obviously did his job fabulously well, and that the picture did. A compulsive negative character can be great.
Okay,
And
I agree. I did it in a very base sense. Do you think anybody would enjoy seeing this movie on home video?
Yes, because I did.
Now let's take another look at the movies we reviewed on this show. 2 thumbs up for Presumed Innocent, the dark, brooding, and suspenseful film version of Scott Turow's bestseller. 2 thumbs down, though, for Chicago Joe and the Showgirl, which wants to be a wartime Bonnie and Clyde and doesn't quite make it. And 2 thumbs up for Spike Lee's Mo Better Blues, with Denzel Washington as a workaholic jazz musician. The movie has some structural problems, but is good to look at and to listen to.
I just want to take a second more on Mo Better Blues, because I think, sure, some people say, oh, you guys are such fans of Spike Lee, you can't admit that he made a bad film. Again, I went a second time. There is real quality on the screen, and then there are problems, both. So what are you going to say? I can't tell people to stay away from this picture.
Well, the whole point of whether a thumb goes up or down is, would you tell a friend to go see this movie?
Yes.
I would not tell a friend to stay away from Mo
Absolutely.
Better Blues.
That's it for this week. Next time, we'll have a special show exploring the appeal of Tom Cruise, when we're calling The Star Next Door. That's next week, and until then, the balcony is closed.